Well, this is nice because I get to speak to one of my very close friends today on the show. Fred, how are you, mate?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on, guys.
It
No
feels like it's
problem.
been. I think we've been trying to get you on for a while, and it's.
He's a busy man. He's a very,
Yeah,
very
I
busy
know.
man.
I know it is a bit tricky, but no, I'm happy to be on. I'm a consistent listener. Amy and I were traveling back
Mm.
from Cornwall the other day, and then I got a little name drop, so I was like, "Oh my god, they mentioned me."
Wait, hold up. I'm just impressed that Amy's okay with listening to the show whilst you're driving in the car all the way back from Cornwall. She's okay with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, she's like, "I'm gonna go to sleep now." I was like, "Okay, well, can you put a podcast on for me then?" And I hadn't listened to the most recent one, or like a couple of your most recent ones. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's a long journey, and I quite like listening to podcasts on long journeys. So
Love
yeah,
that.
she's
That's
pretty
so
chill.
funny. I can never imagine anybody kind of like, because obviously to us it's just us, but I'm always like, yeah, I'll listen to like a bit of like Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson or like one of the main ones, and it feels so weird for someone to choose to put us on and just chat shit for like an hour each episode. But yeah, man, yeah, well, it's good to have you on anyway, and I'm excited to speak to you because obviously, even though that we've shot together in real life and everything, I
Oh
said
yeah, I
that as if we,
forgot you guys have met.
yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah,
completely
yeah.
forgot that you guys have
But
already met.
like, I was looking at your work again before we jumped on this call, and I feel like I don't know whether depending on what you think of this movie, it might be an insult or a compliment. So let me know. But I think that your work has like Saltburn vibes. Like every single piece of work has like it's either got a color thing about it, or it's got a movement, or a composition, or a lighting thing. And there's always one of those elements in it, and I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah.
Like there's always something about it, and off the top of my head, I do remember where like rugby players jumped up into the frame to grab the ball, and like that was the one that like really stands out. But your photography is sick, and yeah, like that's just off your profile though. I've done a bit more, but yeah, I wanted to say that just to kind of kick the episode off because yeah, you're like you're the, at least in my eyes, the creative that kind of encompasses, I guess, like what video and photo kind of does, which is some of them there's movement, some of them there's other stuff, and it's like, yeah, you don't have to stick to like this one thing, and I like that. So there you go. There's my praise. I'm going to leave the call now. But no, yeah, like it's really sick. Like it's definitely different than what I'm used to seeing. So yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm actually terrible because I've hardly seen any films, which is really kind of embarrassing to say, given I work in kind of media. So I've not seen Saltburn, and pretty much the only
Wow.
thing I know about it is that final scene. So
Yeah, the notorious one.
there is
yeah.
a bit of that, but it doesn't really get filmed in rugby. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like very. It's kind of like rich and punchy, and I don't really. Yeah.
You care so much about your composition, and
Hmm.
just for a bit of context, like Fred just mentioned earlier about how I've shouted his name out on the pod various times, so people that listen to the show will probably already know who Fred is. Obviously, an amazing friend, but also a really, really talented creative. And before we get really into like, you know, your composition, the way you like to work, why you're inspired in these ways, do you just want to give the listeners who don't know you a little bit of an insight into kind of what it is you do, what your current role is, and we can kind of touch on that and go through that.
Yeah, sure. So I currently work as the digital video producer for the England Rugby senior men's team. So I'm part of two people that work in camp whenever there's a campaign on. So a Six Nations, Autumn Nations, Summer Tour, Rugby World Cup, which I've not done yet. But anything or any time that the senior men's team have a fixture, I'm going to be in camp filming what they're doing. And essentially, each week I'll produce a weekly behind the scenes episode of what happens in camp that week. And it was kind of started by Joel Stocker, who I took over from ahead of the 2024 Six Nations, and he kind of trailblazed that behind the scenes documentary YouTube series in rugby and kind of in sport, which hadn't really necessarily been done before. It properly got going during 2019 for that World Cup, and it kind of just like blew up. Like each episode had probably like 500,000 views, which is pretty insane, and it's probably because they got to the final of that World Cup. So yeah, that's kind of where it started, and then each kind of year it's had a different iteration with kind of a different name or tagline attached to it, depending on what England Rugby as a brand are hoping to kind of push. So currently the series is called This Rose, but it has previously been called Next Level. Rising Suns was the name of the 2019 Rugby World Cup series. So yeah, it's kind of got a few different names attached to it, but O2 Inside Line is the name of the overall series, as O2 is the sponsor of the video series. So yeah, that's currently my role, and then it's kind of got a few things thrown in there as well. So I do a bit of photography in camp as well, but that's not my main role.
No, but you are a very, very talented photographer, and I kind of want to get onto some of the images you've taken, and we'll kind of, you know, touch on that. But how did you end up in this role? Because I think there are obviously people listening that it's their dream job. You know, anyone that's interested in sport, particularly rugby, like you get to, you know, travel the world with the England first team, go to New Zealand, you're in camp for 3 months, you've just been to Argentina with the England team. Like, how do you get into that position? Obviously, I know your story, but let's kind of go back maybe to, you know, London Irish and kind of what happened there, or, you know.
Yeah, so maybe I'll take it back a bit further just to give a bit of context. So I graduated from Falmouth Uni in 2019, having studied marine and natural history photography. So a course that is completely unrelated to sport. So, but it still had a lot of like the basics that to do with photography and videography, but a lot of it was like underwater filmmaking and photography. So again, nothing to do with rugby or kind of sport in general. From there, I went and joined a media house in Hammersmith, and was the camera op that would travel to each port for the Clip Around the World yacht race. So like straight out of uni and essentially like traveling the world, which was pretty incredible, to be honest, and a bit surreal. And I definitely felt maybe like a little bit out of my depth, thinking, how the hell have I ended up here? And I did that.
Just real quick as well, was this after uni? Like, so you finished in 2019, but was that straight into that? Because I'm just thinking, traveling around back then in 2019/2020, like I think nowadays it's a lot more kind of like out there, but I think back then in 2019 and 2020 it was very like, oh shit, like not many people really got to do that. So that's already like an amazing thing to be doing when you jump out of uni.
Yeah, it was a bit unusual, to be honest. Like it kind of really was. I think I started maybe 2 weeks after I graduated. I think I'd had the job lined up, so that once I graduated, I then went into work straight there. But initially I had applied for a job with that company as like an onboard camera operator. So you'd basically be on one of the boats that would then like tell stories within like one of the boats, focusing on an individual or like the crew. And that would be sailing from like Portimao to Punta del Este in Uruguay, and you'd be crossing the Atlantic and then like telling all the stories that happened there. So like that role sounded incredible. And obviously I'm like 21 at the time and didn't really have many responsibilities, but yeah, I actually didn't get that role. But my email to the company was maybe like a bit out there. But actually a girl who was the year above me on my course got that job, and then they wrote back to me and said, oh, we have this job available. And I had seen that they did have that job available, but it said, we're not hiring anyone straight out of uni. So I didn't really bother to look at it or even think to apply. But yeah, I guess they liked my email, and my dad had actually done sort of 2 legs of the race back in like 2008. So there was some sort of connection there anyway. Okay. So yeah, in terms of like traveling, but when I got the job, it didn't really like hit me until I started telling people, and they were like, that is insane. So yeah,
especially like with a camera and like creative, it's definitely.
It was a bit unusual, and to be honest, a lot of the filming things were like interviews with crew, because it was being put together as part of a larger TV series. So I basically got like essentially halfway around the world. I was in the Philippines for like 5 weeks, and then COVID hit, and that job kind of came to a close. Like I was on furlough for sort of a year, kind of doing odd jobs here and there, which I guess in hindsight I was really fortunate to be able to do, to have some sort of income, but maybe not being quite as creative in the actual job that I was employed to do. So I was there, and then they ended up letting me go. So I lost my job at, I don't know, 22 or 21 maybe. So then I was unemployed for a little bit, and a friend sent me a job with London Irish Rugby Club, who originally were based in Reading, and I went to school in Henley, which is near Reading. So lots of my friends were London Irish fans growing up, and he just sent me the job on LinkedIn and said, "Oh, apply for this and get me free tickets." That's Greg, so shout out to Greg. Anyway, I applied for it, not really thinking much of it, and then got the job, and I was with London Irish for 2 seasons up until 2023, until they went into administration, which was a bit strange as well. So
I want to talk.
There's a bit of a convoluted story.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because, so obviously you lost your first job with the sailing team. You know, COVID hits, you get let go. That obviously doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to people. But then join London Irish, and then after 2 seasons, it goes into administration, and you lose your job again. What was that kind of feeling for you like the second time around? Obviously, we were chatting when it happened, and you were kind of very unsure about where you were going to go and what you were going to do. And obviously, all the staff got let go. All the players suddenly had to find new clubs, and some were getting offers, and some were left high and dry. And I just imagine as a work environment, like what that kind of feels like. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was a bit strange. I mean, the process of going into administration was kind of slow, and then it was very quick in the end. But we kind of had murmurings that the club was hoping to be bought, maybe at the start of the year, and then I'd say by about March, April time, there was potential that there was going to be like a US buyer made up of a consortium of kind of like Hall of Famers from the NFL, NBA, like all sounds really, really exciting. And I think in April we then didn't get paid, and we thought, okay, this is a bit strange. And we had like meetings with the full club, like players, all the backroom staff, and then everyone that worked in the office there, and being told like, oh, the money's being transferred. And you're like, well, bank transfer kind of only just takes like maybe a couple of seconds. It's not that long, really. People were thinking they're like putting it on like cash on a plane that's being sent over, which obviously just wasn't true. And then we worked. Everyone then didn't get paid that. Everyone got paid, I think, about 2 weeks late for April, and then for May, none of us got paid, and we had one final game against Exeter Chiefs. So because everyone really loved the club and still wanted to put that on. So that final game, everyone was working for free essentially, which is a bit mental when they were playing at Brentford's ground, just by Kew Bridge. And then, on like the 7th or 8th of June, everyone gets called into the kind of cafeteria team room area, and they're like, you're all losing your jobs. So that is a bit surreal. But you kind of had like a little bit of time, I guess, to maybe put some plans in place. Like some players had already signed for other clubs. In terms of like the people that worked there, it was really difficult because some people had worked there for like 25 years, and it was essentially like their whole life. And it's so weird for that to be such a large part of your life, and then one day it just completely disappear. So that was really difficult. I mean, I can only talk on having worked there for 2 years, but I love the club. I thought it was brilliant. And then, it was just a bit surreal. Like I can't really put it into words. It was just strange walking in and then being told, in a group of like 60, 70, 80 people, yeah, you're all losing your job today. And then you walk out and kind of like nothing's changed.
It's so crazy when you think about it, especially people that have been there for 25 years. You know, if you've been at a company for 25 years and then you get made redundant, usually we get a redundancy packet, right? And if you've been there for that long, it'd be quite a nice amount. Obviously, it's not nice to be made redundant. But the fact that that didn't even happen, it's crazy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, in a way, I know that you're not freelance, but in a way, like, you kind of got an intro into like how volatile the creative industry and stuff like that is, because I guess, like, especially in jobs that involve sport, there's obviously like a passion aspect. It's not just like 100% like corporate or whatever and very numbers based. It will also be like the passion of the players and the people that work there and things like that. And so that very much is like, so it is like the creative industry. Like, even though you're in like a sports club, it's really interesting. It's quite. Was it confusing as well? You know, like, especially coming out of uni and then doing that and then going to your second job and then that happening as well. Like, I don't know. Matt said that you guys spoke. Was you confused about what you was doing or where to go?
It was a bit unusual. I mean, it's probably not normal for someone to be made redundant twice by the age of 24. So it was a bit kind of strange from that side of things. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a bit unusual.
So how did the job with England come about then? So because it's funny, you go from obviously a Prem team. You know, where did Exeter finish in that season? They were like in the bottom half of the table, I think. But you were going, you know, from a Prem Rugby team in like, you know, a fairly standard setup size. But then before you know it, you're now in the England Rugby team, like with the elite of the elite, the best rugby players in the whole of, you know, England. And it's like the dream job. If you could have ever left London Irish because you chose to, the next level would be either a bigger and better Prem team like a Sarries or someone like that, or an international rugby team, and so you know, it happened to be England. So how did that kind of come about?
So the year before, in 2022, I'd actually applied for a job with England. I think within the community game potentially. I can't actually remember what the role was, but they ended up just saying that it wasn't quite right for me, and like we'd stay in touch, whatever. At the start of 2023, I emailed them again saying, "Oh, I know the World Cup's coming up later in the year. Like, I know a handful of the players that are in the current squad. Like, if you need a hand, just let me know." And Ewan, who's our head of marketing, replied saying, "Oh yeah, I'll forward you on to Hass, who's our head of content." Anyway, he actually didn't do that, which is fine. But I then just guessed what Hass's email was off what Ewan's was. So I emailed Hass and just said, you know, if you need a hand, whatever, like, just let me know. And he like politely responded and said, "Oh no, we're all good, like, for the time being." Anyway, when they found out that Irish went under, they like reached out to me pretty much straight away, which was great. And they just said, "Oh, do you want to come in and we'll just have a conversation?" So yeah, I went in, met Hass, met Joel, who was still doing my current role back then in 2023. And yeah, they offered me a contract for 6 months, essentially, up until the end of the year. So yeah, I went away from that just thinking, oh, like, I have a think, because I was kind of to and fro and like speaking with Matt, like what freelancing is like. And to be honest, I hadn't really set up any kind of network for myself. So it would really kind of be going in at the deep end. Like, I'd only just moved to London in April and then I'd lost my job in June. So fortunately, my parents live like 40 minutes outside of London. So I'm really lucky in that respect that I could just move back home. But you are just thinking like, oh gosh, where do I go from here? But yeah, I decided to join England for the 6 months, not really thinking that it would then transition me into the role that I'm doing now. So it was doing not really anything to do with the World Cup, to be honest. I went and photographed a fan zone for the opening game, I think, and then did a few other projects that were more less to do with like the men's team, but like England Rugby as a whole, from like women's age group stuff, like across the board. So it was quite varied, to be honest. And I thought in between that time I might be able to start reaching out to a few people and see where it takes me. And then towards the end of the World Cup, Joel decided that he wanted to take a step back from his role, as he's got a young family and wanted to spend more time with them, as it's quite a time-consuming job in that respect, in that you don't really spend a huge amount of time at home with your friends and family. So that was understandable, having, from his perspective, done it for 8 years. So they then offered me to fill his boots, essentially. And my first campaign was the 24 Six Nations last year. So yeah, it was surreal, to be honest, like having been a rugby fan growing up and then being in this role and then being in the Six Nations and like working with players that you'd seen on the TV growing up. It was a bit bizarre, really. So
I just want to touch
I can't
go on, you finish.
No, I didn't really have much more else to add, to be honest.
Well, I just wanted to touch on the point you made about how you guessed the email and like you put your name in the hat. And I think that's probably really important, in the sense that the guy didn't forward an email, but you reached out. He didn't forward. You didn't give up. You guessed an email. You reached out. And maybe if you hadn't have done that, they might have not reached out to you when Irish went into administration. Obviously, we don't know, but you obviously put yourself front and center in their mind. You showed them that you're keen. You obviously have the skill set, but if you hadn't have sent those emails and, guessed the other email, you might not be sat where you're sat now, doing the job you're doing now. So I just think, as a lesson for the listeners, that's a prime example of how putting your name in the hat, putting yourself out there, guessing an email, you might do that 100 times and it might not work out, but you might do it that once and it can make all the difference and change the pathway in your career. And I think that's an amazing example of that. So I just wanted to really push that point forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, posting on socials and kind of being in the forefront of people's minds in that respect is really good. But if you've made a connection with a company or an individual, then popping up to them, not online and just via email or text, can also be quite useful. And I guess it does work out sometimes. Yeah,
for sure. We you just spoke about kind of the Six Nations, and I don't want to speak on Joel's behalf, but obviously Joel stepped down from the role. He's got a young family. He wants to spend more time with them. I kind of want to get into that, because like, obviously, when we've chatted, I'll text you and you'll be like, mate, like, I haven't seen my own bed for over 2 months. And I'm sat here like at home, just like gobsmacked. Like, how do you do it? Obviously, you're in a relationship as well, and she obviously lives back here. So how hard is it to be on the road, be in camp for 3 months, be in Argentina, be in New Zealand? Like, how difficult is that? And like, it would be really good to kind of just really speak on that and make people aware of what goes into it. And we've had, photographers and videographers that work with music artists. They go on tour. It's late hours editing. You're getting stuff turned around. You were saying with your video series, you have to have an episode turned around and out by a certain time every week. That can be a pain when you're abroad, jet lag, time zone differences, stable internet connection, all that kind of stuff. So it'd be good if you could kind of share some insight into what that process is like and kind of the hours that you have to put in.
Yeah, so I think my first Six Nations, so to give some context for people that aren't rugby fans, the Six Nations is a competition that England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Italy and France all take part in, and it happens kind of at the start of every year. That campaign for, I'd say, most teams is probably about 8 weeks long. So you play 5 games and have 2 fallow weeks, which is just like a break for a week. So for my first Six Nations, it was definitely like a baptism of fire. It's essentially like being in a bubble, like, because I was staying at Penny Hill Park for that campaign. I think just because you you go to training, you film stuff, you edit things, you're doing quite long hours. When I then like went off site for like the first time in like 3 weeks, I was like, oh my God, things are actually still just happening as normal outside of like this environment. But you're so consumed by everything that's happening when you're there. And I think that's kind of a good thing in some respects, in that you're totally focused on the task at hand, but then you kind of maybe forget to pick up the pieces that stuff still is going on outside of this quite important thing. But also there's more important things like chatting to your friends and family. So yeah, I think initially I struggled to kind of balance the two. So I'd maybe not talk to people outside of camp as regularly as I should. And I've definitely improved at that over time, like making a conscious effort to put time in your day to just have like a half an hour phone call with Amy or like my parents or anyone really, just to kind of take a breather from what is and what can be a intense environment.
Yeah, no. And are you editing till quite late? Do you leave all your editing till like the day before the episode comes out? Like, how do you kind of break all of that up?
Yeah.
It definitely took a bit of getting used to. Like Joel said to me when I first joined, that you kind of have to get used to how you kind of spread your weeks out. And the way that we used to shoot the series was that we do like sit down interviews with players, whereas now it's a bit more casual and it's kind of on the fly type things where you just be chatting to someone in their room and like you're just talking how we are now, but you've just got a camera to the side, whereas the other ones were much more kind of intentional, and you would have a player sit down in front of you and you'd say, can you look down the lens? And it's maybe a bit more intense. So that was more time consuming in that respect, because you kind of have to block out a time where the player is free and so are you. So yeah, like there's no beating around the bush. Like the days are pretty long in camp. I'd say you're probably up from like 7 in the morning, and then you could be working through until like early hours sometimes. And like the episodes are potentially like 10 to 20 minutes long, and you're turning that edit round within a week alongside shooting everything that you need to. And at the start of the week, there's sometimes maybe overlap because you've not finished the previous week's episode, and that goes out on a Tuesday night. Well, we'll try to get it out on a Tuesday night as best we can, but with time zones and things like that, it changes. But yeah, it's tricky to balance. I feel like I've got more of a handle on it now, but when I first joined, it was kind of like I'd shoot everything and then edit, whereas now it's once you've shot something, then edit a little bit, put it in the sequence, and then you can kind of add to it as you go. Even if it's just like cutting down an interview, taking out ums and ahs, or like just finding the best bits, like re-listening to stuff. I think when you're shooting and producing, you're not maybe always taking in exactly what someone's saying, because you're thinking of the next question or like exactly what you're shooting. It's kind of difficult to balance at some stages. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask that about the kit as well, though. Like, I think I saw on your Instagram that you shoot on an FX6 quite a lot, and I'm wondering, are you shooting, like, has the kit evolved? So maybe you was, doing the interviews and it was a lot more like tripod setup, like worrying about like what to use more, and eventually it's just, here's a microphone, I'm just going to follow you with this FX6 and we just get whatever. And like, I know on the FX6 you can shoot in S-Cinetone where like there's a grade like baked in. Do you do stuff like that, or are you still trying to keep a bit more of that, like, we'll shoot in S-Log, we'll keep stuff like, as production or whatever?
Yeah, it is very run and gun. So yeah, for the most part, I do shoot on an FX6 with. I mean, we can go a bit nerdy. It's FX6 with a 24 to 105 lens, and then for training, that's maybe like you're a bit further away. You use a 100 to 400. So
that's a big lens, the 100 to 400.
Yeah, it's a pretty hefty bit. Like, I mean, it's kind of like similar size to a 70 to 200, but just a bit heavier. So yeah, I shoot in S-Log, but yeah, with the kind of LUT baked into the monitor, so you can kind of see what you're shooting. So you're not kind of like not shooting blind, but you just have a bit more control over things. And then for sound, I just got like a shotgun mic on the top. And then for like interviews and stuff, we've just got the DJI mics, which you can. We've got like an XLR adapter that you can then plug in, which works quite nicely. But then for more,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say for more kind of situations where you're out in public with a player shooting, whether that's like going to a coffee shop or something like that, and you don't want to carry something quite as obnoxious as a FX6. I just shoot on a A7S3, which is a lot more compact and also works very nicely with the DJI mics. So yeah, it's quite a good little duo, to be honest.
As you was talking about that, it did make me think, how does filming fit into like a player's schedule? Because a lot of people, they're not like used to being on camera, and especially if they have to train, is it difficult to get them to say sit down? Or I imagine it's a lot easier just to follow them so they can carry on doing what they're doing. But I guess from a creative aspect, like that probably is something to work around as well, really.
Yeah, I think with the new style that we tried to implement from this year's Six Nations, which is a lot more kind of on the fly, like the players are really good, and like the coaching staff is as well are brilliant in terms of like access. Like having spoken to other like football teams and other nations, like our access is far better than like you could really imagine at like a football club or something like that. And like the players are brilliant in terms of giving their time. They understand the value in it, and it's also just about like building relationships in terms of like talking to them when you don't have a camera in your hand, and that helps a lot. And because we're
especially in FX6, it's just this giant like
yeah, exactly. So like but the players are really good. Like it will just be as they're doing something. So for example, it won't be like during their training session, but it might be when they're in the ice bath afterwards, and you just grab a quick word from them. And it doesn't have to be long. You might have like 3 or 4 questions in your head that you want to answer, and they might like tick them off there and then, or you maybe just need to text them and say, oh, can we just grab like an extra bit like a little bit later in your room, or if you're going out for a coffee, can I join? And I won't come for the whole time, because like you want to respect their time when they're not thinking about rugby or like the game on the weekend. So just being mindful of that as well.
Yeah,
nice.
I know Matt's dying to ask and move on, but I just wanted to say that it must be interesting to change your relationship to like the creative process, because if you're used to like doing interviews and it's a bit more like locked in, and you can have like a tripod and lighting and stuff like that, and then you also have to figure out a way to move, and like it's, at least in my own experience, like if you get used to doing something a certain way and then suddenly you need to do the same thing, sometimes it can feel like I want to get this same thing, but I want to get it in like a controlled way. But then you have to learn to be okay being like, we'll run and gun it, and then you find ways of making that stuff look amazing because you get used to doing it that way as well. And I know, I just wanted to say that just for the listeners, but yeah, it's God, I feel like I would I don't know, it's like a pros and cons thing. It's like it's good, but it's also like a lot of on your toes, I think, is what I'm trying to sort of put
definitely
forward.
Once I've kind of maybe fleshed out the idea of what I want to shoot for that week in terms of maybe who the focus is, it then requires like maybe a little bit of research in terms of what questions to ask the player, and there's still like a balance of just having a sit down interview with them, but it's not quite as formal as a tripod. It might just be me holding the camera, because the FX6 is quite nice where it's got that grip on the side, or like just leaning it on a table and like they're just sat in a chair opposite me, but I've still got the questions in my hand that I can still ask them. And so there's kind of like that aspect of it as well. But even if you kind of get a few questions from a player as they're walking, or even like a situation that happened, you can then like refer back to it in your interview maybe a little bit later. So then you're not like missing out on the two things. That's maybe not a very good explanation of what I've just said, but
I think it's good.
Okay.
I want to touch on, how Cameron, you were just saying about how you feel like you want to control it, and I could see it bothering you, Cameron, like thinking about it.
Yeah.
Fred, what you do really well whenever I watch, this Rose or the new episode that's out, is even in a run and gun environment, what I love about your work is you're super conscious about your framing, your composition, the way things enter and leave the frame, and you're really intentional with it. And I think kind of what Cameron touched about at the start, like you get like remind me of the director that everything is symmetrical, is it not?
You're talking about Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson,
yeah, and like, I feel like I don't know if you take inspiration from people like that, but it's very, there's symmetrical, there's a nice frame, you're really intentional with the way you compose. And over the years, as we've got to know each other, it's always really inspired me to be more intentional with the way I produce my compositions. And even when you're doing run and gun stuff, you can see that coming through still. You're not locked up off on a tripod, you might be handheld, but you're still... it's like you're still on a tripod with the way you like manage to line stuff up. Kind of, what is it that goes through your head when you're kind of thinking about that, or is it just kind of subconscious?
No, so rule of thirds is massive for me. Like I sort of live and die by that. In terms of like shooting, I do have those lines that just go horizontally and vertically. So when I'm thinking about a composition, because I've done it kind of maybe so much now, you kind of know where the camera is and where someone's eye line might be or where they're placed in the frame, so that you don't always necessarily have to look at what you're shooting, because you kind of just have a feeling of where things line up and like where eyes sit, and like just being conscious about certain things, especially like even in an interview, if you shot someone on one side looking from left to right, and then if you're shooting someone else, then doing it the opposite way, so you're not kind of got people overlaying each other in an edit if you're then going from like one person to the next. So just thinking about things like that. But yeah, in terms of composition, Wes Anderson was a big inspiration for me. I did my dissertation on him, so maybe that's
of course.
I think I remember you telling me
sense.
that. However, I thought I remember you telling me that, but I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Yeah, but it wasn't actually on composition, it was on colour, because I'm red-green colourblind, so it's quite an unusual thing for someone in the creative industry to have.
Jesus.
But initially my thought process for the dissertation was like how kind of colourblind photographers and their use of colour, but then there was so little research on it, I thought, it's not even worth pursuing. And I know Wes Anderson is like massive on how he uses color, whether that's in costume, set design, just how it's graded. Like it's a constant theme. And obviously the composition is obviously a massive thing as well. But I'd say maybe even more from a composition point of view, just like journalistic photographers, like Greg Williams is a big inspiration for me in terms of how he shoots. I love the feeling that someone gets when they feel like they're in a scene with them, and I think even though it might like rub you up the wrong way, Cameron, in terms of things aren't set up perfectly in how you want to shoot an interview, if someone's watching it, especially a young person, and they're feeling like they're just having a conversation with the player or they are there as well, then I think that's really cool. And shooting wide also makes you feel like you're there as well. So like a tunnel walkout, for example, if it's quite tight, it could be like anyone could have shot that and you don't know how far away you are. But if you're shooting quite wide and you're like stood right next to a player, you're like, oh wow, like I am walking out the tunnel with them here. So compositionally, there's quite a few inspirations. Another photographer that I loved growing up was Morgan Masson. He's a surf photographer, I think from California, but his work is brilliant. I think he grades all of his stuff in iPhotos, which is a bit mental. But his composition and just general shooting and grading of things is lovely. So maybe you can show some of these images over there.
We'll be throwing all sorts of stuff up whilst he's saying this. But like, that's so surprising. I can't believe it. Yeah, I feel like you are natural. You must just have like a natural like eye and sort of like knowledge and experience for it, because even when I'm thinking about your stuff, there are photos and say videos where it's some of it. What comes? Sorry, I'm like tripping over my words there. What comes to mind is like you have some shots of. I'm not a rugby person, so I don't know what it is, but where they're like when the game starts and they crash into each other, and you have like photo shots of like their arms like wrapped around each other and things like that. I can't remember. Begins with S.
You on about the
scrum?
Yeah, the scrum. That's it. Yeah, and so, but then you've also got other pictures and other videos where it is wides, and then there's also like I think they're coming out of the tunnel as well, and you're like there right behind them. And there's things like that where you capture through your composition and your colours. You always capture like this. I don't know. It's like you're there, but you're also like in it, but you're there as a viewer as well as also not there. Like it's like this.
Wides and tights, I think, are really important, right? So like details, finite, tiny details, hands on the ball. Like all that, like, you know, scrum, arms around each other. And then like you do that really well. You go super wide and you see it like you're stood in the arena. But then like as humans, we pick up wide, don't we? But then we pick up like the grain on this leather mat that you can see with your hand. And like, so I think you do that really well, Fred, in a case of, you know, and I take inspiration from that as well, showing tiny details that you would only see if you were there, but also shooting wide like you are there as well, and that combination of the two really works.
Yeah, and there's a cohesiveness to it as well, like, and that comes with the tights and the wides. But again, the cohesiveness with the colour, like I picture someone kicking the rugby ball, but there's like the grass and the ball are kind of like contrasted. It's just so weird. I don't know how. You obviously must put a lot of thought into it, and I'm just there like, yeah. But honestly, like it's really good, and I'm inspired by it. I think it's so sick. It's got like a coming of age to it. There's like a warm, colourful coming of age kind of vibe, like Saltburny vibe. I don't know, but it gets me excited because it's just like it encompasses like what it is, like what the creativity is made up of, like the composition and the colours and everything just kind of is together in every shot, which is weird.
A load of work up on the screen of which I think, whilst we're showing some work of yours up on the screen, as this is, you know, for those watching on Spotify and stuff.
Fred's going to go away from this episode thinking he's like, okay, there's going to...
Well, we need to show... There's one photo...
It's going to explode.
There's one photo that is one of my favourite images of all time, and it's taken by you. And it's the photo that you recently took in Argentina, and it's the black and white photo. It'll be up on screen now, of the players entering the stadium. And it could be one of my favourite photos ever. And I've said to Fred I'm going to buy it off him, and it's going to be in this office. I want to get it printed. And that was the photo that encouraged me to buy the Ricoh, because you shot that on your Ricoh, whilst also, didn't you have your FX6 in the other hand as well? Which is mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't really know what to say.
Well, so that photo was shot during the game we played in Washington against the USA.
Oh, that was it.
And this, like, it's quite unusual in a stadium to have stairs going up to the pitch. Like, usually it's just a tunnel and it's all quite standard, and it's kind of, I don't know, you kind of get used to just coming out of a tunnel, whereas stairs is quite unusual. It doesn't happen very regularly. And there's an image from, I think, the 2019 World Cup. I think it might have been Dan Mullen, who is the Getty photographer that we work with very closely. And he took it of, I think, Owen Farrell looking back at Ben Youngs, I think, walking up some stairs in Japan. And it, like, that was sort of the inspiration. I thought, that would be quite cool, especially in black and white, because like the highlights will be super sort of overexposed, I guess, when you're coming from like quite a dark area to a light one. And I thought initially it would be cool looking down the stairs because the women's team with like Alona Mar were playing before, and I thought, that'd be cool, but it ended up being in a different place when they came back in from their game. So I had the FX6 in my left hand walking up as the players are walking out, and this is for the second half, by the way, so that's why they've not got like anthem jackets on and stuff. So FX6 in the left hand. I think my phone is recording on top of it, and then I've got my Ricoh in the right hand, and I'm just like blindly shooting. I kind of know roughly the composition, as sort of what I was saying earlier, like rule of thirds, like because it's a fixed lens at 24mm, you kind of know what that would look like. And yeah, that was kind of the thinking. It was a lot of blind shooting, but yeah, it worked out quite nicely. And I guess like a lot of it comes down to how you grade things as well. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's graded. It's graded really, really nicely, and the black and white just works with, like you say, with the contrast. And so, are these all things that you're thinking of? You know that inside the stadium it's super bright, down the stairs it's super dark. Did you already know that that was going to be a black and white shot because of the contrast before you'd even like kind of taken it? If you get what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Like I think you'll play around with color, but deep down you know it's going to be black and white. So yeah. And to be honest, that's like I do that quite a lot. Like if I know that I want to shoot something in black and white, or like I see something, I think, oh, that'll look good in black and white. When I get to Lightroom or something, I already like have a idea in my mind about how it's going to look. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'll have like maybe another option in color, but I've got quite
Yeah.
a soft spot for black and white. I do like it a lot.
Yeah. No, for
Just
sure.
speaking of processes real quick, like, is there anything that every single game, every single camp or whatever, like, is there a process that you follow or things that you know you probably will need when you are out on the pitch and stuff? Because I'm just imagining any listeners that are shooting sports and they are on the sidelines and they are trying to, whether it's photo or video, is there anything where you're like, if you do this, you absolutely need like this lens, or you absolutely need like, if it rains, you probably need like a cover or something, little things.
Yeah, so for matches, I'm sat by the bench, so my setup doesn't really change too much. It's still the 24 to 105. And yeah, like I'm just capturing reactions. I think a big part of what makes sport great is like how much emotion that is shown in it, and like being able to capture that firsthand, whether that's like us scoring or it's the opposition scoring, and seeing the reactions of players. Like it's like I feel pretty lucky to be able to sit that close and see that firsthand. So rain cover I feel is pretty standard. I don't have it on me the whole time, but it'll be in my bag that's like just inside at the stadium, so it's like pretty easy to hand. And then I'll have like a little kind of bag, and inside it will have my film camera, the Ricoh, which I've used quite a lot. So like if there's maybe we don't have the ball during a game, or like it's in the middle of the pitch, like nothing's really happening, I could just snap a few things. Or like throughout the game, it's quite nice to just be able to whip out, turn it on. You can do it all one-handed, so that makes it quite nice and easy. But yeah, from my perspective and kit-wise, it doesn't really change too much. But if you were shooting the game, like a longer lens as possible, especially for rugby matches, is pretty important, and being on a tripod and being steady and stuff. So we have another member of the content team that will shoot the game with like England running towards them to capture tries. So we don't have to use broadcast all the time, because they don't necessarily always have the best angles, and sometimes it has like the scoreboard on and stuff, and you have to crop in, and then it looks a bit rubbish. So just being able to have some freedom from that respect is good as well.
I just want to talk about the 24 to 105 quickly, because I've never used that lens. Do you rate it? Because when I shot the Prem final and I was on the bench at full time when the whistle went with Bath, I was on the 70-200, and I definitely felt like it would have been so nice to have something a little wider. And obviously I could punch into 200, which was great, but I feel like that 24 to 105 is like obviously the perfect lens. Like, do you rate it as a lens?
Yeah, so I bought it back in 2018 maybe, when I bought my A7 III, which I still have. And it just, because it's got a few extra millimeters and it's still just as wide. It's got f4, which I guess like is fine for video, and especially with what I'm shooting, you don't really want to shoot wide open all the time, just because it's one pretty difficult.
Especially if you zoomed in.
Yeah, like you wouldn't really notice the difference. Maybe the only difference is shooting in low light is where you'd really see probably a big change.
But you are on the FX6 though, so
true. Yeah,
low
exactly.
light is like,
yeah. But actually, one thing I noticed, there was a 2-day camp earlier this week, and I used the 24 to 70, and I'm not very techie as a person, but I don't think it has inbuilt stabilization within the lens. So it was very shaky, and because I was only shooting on the A7S3, when I was looking back at some of the footage, I was like, God, it's real shaky. But
Really?
that is a bonus
Yeah.
of the 24 to 105, is that it does have inbuilt stabilization, which does really help, I'd say.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. You don't. Yeah, I guess you don't notice as well how much. Sometimes you don't even realize that you've been using something until you don't have it, and you're like, "Oh, this is something I really need. I'll know that from now on."
Mm.
Also, just real quick, going back to the process thing, um, I wanted to ask if there was any shots that you know to get every single time, or again, just for like people listening, is there anything where you go, I need to get this reaction shot, I need to get a shot of like the ball being kicked, I need to get a wide of like the full players like lining up when the ball's being kicked, something like, is there anything where you just like, yeah, these are the shots that no matter what match it is, it's always good to get stuff like this?
I think establishing shots are really good to give some context as to where people are. The player arrivals are always pretty standard. Reactions to most things is pretty good as well. I always capture the first kickoff, regardless of who's kicking off, whether that's us or the opposition. And sometimes I will put the like 100 to 400 in my little pouch as well, and then you can get slightly tighter. Or if you're just shooting at 4K, you can just crop in. What other shots? Actually, just going back to when you were talking about like shooting very close up and then wide, I can't remember who it was, but there was a guy that came to one of my final year shows that I invited, and he used to work for the BBC as like a underwater cameraman, and he basically just said that medium shots or mid shots are rubbish. Like, just don't include them because they don't tend to add a great deal. And I guess I've kind of maybe like just taken that on board with how I shoot now. And I don't really tend to use like many mid shots unless it's maybe like sometimes an establishing shot if you're really kind of scrambling for footage. But yeah, going between wide and close up, I think is quite nice because it keeps the viewer interested. And yeah, it's quite nice to just go back and forth, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then going back to absolutes with shooting, maybe not for like a match day, but certainly for like training weeks. If you know the theme of what you're shooting, being able to capture shots that might work well with a certain emotion, whether that's like being reflective or something like that. It might be like a player who's just casually looking, but you could then add music and then it becomes a bit more emotional and stuff. So
that's interesting.
yeah, there's like
Yeah.
things from that perspective as well, which I think can be quite useful. So yeah, maybe as we're talking, I'll try and think of a few more because I don't think I've given really many useful ones.
Oh no, I thought that was really useful.
Yeah, that was useful.
Yeah.
That was useful. Okay. It'd be good to talk about because I think I know the answer to a couple, but not many. What have been some of the like real highlights working with England Rugby in terms of moments, whether that's images you captured, videos you captured, like proudest moments, proudest bit of work, like what is it that really stands out to you when you think about kind of your career so far with England Rugby?
So maybe from the beginning, for the 24 Six Nations, so like my first one, Netflix were in for that campaign. So it was kind of useful to be able to pick their brains about, because it's from they were working for Box to Box, which are also the company that produce F1 Drive to Survive. So I was working with the series, or maybe he wasn't the series producer, but he was a shooting producer called Phil Turner and Harry Moppet, who were both shooting. And Phil is like a legend and has worked on countless things, like 1-2 BAFTAs. So like being able to pick their brains and just sit in on like the interviews that they do with players for Netflix and just seeing how they ask questions and keeping it quite casual with some of their questioning. They'll obviously have things that they've got lined up to ask them, but then if a player says something that they maybe weren't expecting, to then just kind of push further on that subject matter and keep it very conversational, because in the edit you can like cut bits and make it work for you, and it doesn't have to be when they start talking to when they start finishing is what you'll use. So, and you can kind of marry bits up here and there, which I guess is like the benefit of also editing what you shoot, because you know what is going in. But yeah, other highlights. I mean, that campaign in general was just a bit surreal. Like I said before, working with players that you'd watched on the TV growing up is cool, and just like building a relationship with them. So like Danny Kerr got his 100th cap in that campaign. So it was amazing to be able to capture memories for him to look back on. And I do think that when I shoot a lot of this stuff is that these players won't be playing forever. So to be able to capture some of what they do and have that as kind of a little time capsule, even if it is just a 15-minute YouTube video, is pretty special. So yeah, that's cool. And then that summer tour was pretty incredible. So we went to Japan and New Zealand and played Japan, and then a 2-game series in New Zealand. And anyone who is a rugby fan know that New Zealand is one of the teams in world rugby. So being able to go there and go to a country which lives and breathes rugby was really, really cool. And to go to some iconic stadiums like Eden Park and watch the haka there, that's like top 10 bucket list, I reckon, if you're a rugby fan. So being able to do that and work it was like incredible. And then like the Six Nations this year, we played some incredible rugby. The squad felt really close. Like I just really enjoyed it. Joel actually came in and helped me produce that series, so we worked quite closely, which is really nice. And just being able to balance the workload was also really good. So it's quite a demanding job. So being able to either split the edit or help shoot and just bounce ideas off is really useful as well. So that was really good. And then yeah, the summer tour was also very special. Going to Argentina and the US and winning all 3 of those games was really cool. For anyone that is a rugby fan that knows that it was a Lions year this year, so we had a lot of our consistent starting players away, so it was quite a young squad. So it was nice to be able to like build a relationship with them and I don't know, just have an imprint on them from a creative point of view as well. And then from an actual work point of view, there's probably like a handful of episodes that I'm particularly proud of. The George Ford episode from this year's summer tour, I'm really proud of as an episode. It tied together really nicely. Yeah, George got 100 caps, which is an incredible feat in itself. One of like the most underrated players in English rugby.
Facts.
To do it in
I feel so out on the outside.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just going to start. I'm just going to speak, and hopefully someone will understand along the way. But yeah, so that episode was brilliant. So Kate is one of the physios in camp, and she's worked with George since he was 14 or 15. And from her perspective, like being able to work with him up until I think he's like 33 now, or 32.
Yeah.
Like to be able to see that journey from someone must be so incredible. So we like got a little word from her, and then went to a coffee shop with Jamie, George, and Fordy, and just spoke to them about when they toured Argentina when they were, I think Fordy was 16 or 17 and Jamie was 18. So it was an under 18s tour. And then to be back in the place that you kind of toured when you were that young, but this time you're making 100 caps for your country. And just the whole thing tied in really nicely. I liked how I edited it, went from interview to like match day stuff, and I don't know, it all just flowed really nicely. It would make sense if you watched it rather than me just
emotion, mate.
Ramble on, but
it hit home.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I feel like I'm quite in touch with my feelings, so I like to think that conveys quite well when you're editing stuff. So being able to put an emotional standpoint on sport, I think is really good, because people are so invested in it. I mean, you look at football, it's literally like, it's tribal. So it is like that in rugby as well. So yeah, and then from a work point of view, one of the videos that I first made when I went into that 24 Six Nations was the rugby make it cinematic, and I loved some of the shots that I got in there. The grade on it I thought was quite good, and it had like a bit of fancy masking as well. So
when I saw that, I was like, yes, England Rugby made the right recruitment and the right hire, because rugby is about to level the fuck up. That's how it felt to me as a rugby fan. I was like, and I had people that, like, friends from like uni and stuff, send me this, and they're like, isn't this your mate? And I was like, yes. Like, it's fucking, like, the stuff was so good, and I'd never seen rugby shot in that way before, which got me excited as a creative and a rugby fan. So yeah, sorry, I was just getting quite excited about that. Cameron, well, I want to say, Cameron, I've got a question for you. Do you know who Jonny Wilkinson is?
No.
Okay, well, Fred, surely one of the special moments was getting to work with Jonny Wilkinson.
Wait, I'm gonna just give it a quick Google search real quick.
So Jonny Wilkinson won the World Cup in 2003 with England, and he was the one that kind of, with the final kick of the game, won it for them, essentially. So he's kind of a big deal in English rugby and in rugby in general. But he comes into camp quite frequently and works with the kickers a lot on their kicking. So actually, like a year ago, I wanted to get him on the series, even if it was just like a short word. That was like my aim for that campaign, and I managed to do it. And through just a bit of like building up the courage and thinking, okay, he's just a normal guy. He's just called Jonny, and you can go up and talk to him, and it will be normal. And you just go, "Hi, Jonny. Can you maybe answer a few questions for me? I'm Fred, by the way." And it was great. Like he was perfect, and he's very in tune with like how he feels and stuff. So he gave a very good answer on what I asked him. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight because he's a bit of a legend. So yeah, that was cool.
Mate, I'd be so nervous to go up to him. I'd be so scared to go up to him. Cameron doesn't get it. Cameron doesn't understand.
I can imagine. Yeah, of course, that'd be terrifying.
It would be like you getting to meet Thanos from the Avengers. That's the only thing I can relate to.
Honestly, no.
Fingers crossed that happens.
I do want to ask though. So I've got a few projects where I look back and I'm like very proud of it, super sick. But then I'm like, I know when I was making it, I was like dying. And is there anything that you look back on where you're like, that was a long night? Or, yeah, getting that one particular shot, I really had to kind of like push boundaries to like, maybe get through security or something, or ask permission to get somewhere. And it was like, right, I've got like one chance to like get this. Or, just one of those moments on a project where you're like, yeah, that was hard, but I'm glad it's in the past now. Especially football,
I think
stadiums and stuff.
one or two of the edits when we were in Japan, just because of the time difference, because we were basically, it was like 8 hours ahead, but essentially like you shoot and be with the players most of the day, and then you eat dinner, and then you think, oh god, now I've got to like start editing. So you start editing, and then by the time it gets to like maybe 12 or 1 in the morning, then everyone in the UK wakes up, and then you're kind of like catching up with them, and then next thing you know, it's like 4 in the morning, and you think, oh my god, I've got to be up in like 3 or 4 hours to then go and do it. And I think I was at training one day, and I think Aled, who used to be our S&C coach, was like, "Freddie, you all right? You look dreadful." And I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I'll get an earlier night tonight." But yeah, that was like, I was still kind of new to kind of balancing how the weeks work in camp. So yeah, I don't do as many late nights as I used to. I tend to go to bed at a somewhat reasonable time, but then wake up early and maybe wake up at 6, literally get out of bed, go and sit at my desk, and then work, and then get the day started.
Yeah. I think that's difficult, that in creativity, you have to almost like find your own way of doing the thing. And I think as you said earlier, it's like, is it trial by fire, or you said chaos by baptism? I don't know. You said baptism by fire. That was it. That was it. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like you have to go through it, and then like, I don't know. Yeah, just there's been a lot of moments like that, so I can relate. So,
yeah, a lot of it's just trial and error. Like you just figure out what works for you, and then like what I do probably doesn't work for the next person. So yeah, don't stress yourself out about thinking that you have to do things in a certain way, because that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Well, starting to round it up, because we're in over an hour now. My question to you would be, for someone who wants to be in the position you're in right now, they want to be in like a similar job role to you, and they're just starting out, they might be fresh out of uni or whatever. What kind of advice, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but like what kind of advice would you say that you would give, or how you would tell them to kind of push their creativity further? Is there anything you would recommend to do?
I think when I was younger, I was just quite like confident. I would just have a list of people that I wanted to email and would just do it. And I went, like, Falmouth was a very creative uni, and the two people that I lived with that were also at Falmouth and are now in the creative industry were super driven as well. So you're kind of like surrounded by that sort of environment, which was great. But I think if you're able to be in a position where you can afford to do free work, I would recommend it if you can. But that's not the case for everyone. So like take that with a pinch of salt. But if you are a student and you are able to, then lean into that, like lean into the fact that you don't know things. I think that people are more willing to help you than you realize. And also if you're in a position where you are still studying, yeah, I think people will help you out more. But also if you're like 2 years graduated and have got zero experience, employers might look at you and think, what have you been doing? So yeah, just be confident with reaching out to people. And you never know where like opportunities could come up. Like I remember a film got showed that I really liked at uni, and I think it was on Netflix. And anyway, I wrote down the director's name and just emailed him, not really thinking anything would come of it. And they responded and he said, "Oh, I'm going to put you in touch with our head of production." And I went up for a meet. I went to meet them in London. They're like, "Oh, you've not really got anything on at the moment." Anyway, like 2 weeks later, they were like, "Oh, actually, do you want to be our intern for the summer? And we're going to send you on a shoot to La Gomera, and you can be a digital image technician." I was like, "Okay, well, I've never done that before, but yeah." And it was just cool. Like the project, I don't think ever saw the light of day, but like just one email can literally change.
I feel like that is the overarching message in this episode, is because at the beginning of the episode you said how you reached out to get onto was it the second company, I think you said, or the first company to get in there, and then obviously eventually to get to England. It's just, that's crazy, man. I think that's something that people, it's almost like it's so easy that you think everyone will do it, so you don't. But then when you do it, you end up getting a response from it.
That's so true, Cameron.
Yeah, especially nowadays as well.
It's like the obvious thing, and because it's the obvious thing, people are like, "Oh, well, everyone's doing it, so I won't bother doing it." It's so true, and like, for sure, I think it's a nice way to kind of wrap up the episode. The overarching theme here is throw your name in the hat, because you never know where it can take you and what opportunities will find you if you do that.
Yeah. I do have one more question, but
go on. Well,
you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the lottery.
Yeah, exactly, Fred. Yeah. And the last question we always ask on this show is, do you have any late invoices? That doesn't apply to you because you're a salary man, and I hope England pay you on time. I'm sure they do. But Cameron, you can ask a final question in replacement of that question.
I was going to ask, what are you aiming to do, just like from here on out? Like from this year to next year. What would you do different if you are, if you're still going to be shooting rugby and all that stuff? Like, is there anything that you're going to be like, that thing that I went through last year or this year, I'm going to try and like sort this out this year, or I'm going to try and shoot this better. I'm going to try and do the event for next year. That was the 2024 one and the 2025 one. Are you going to try and do that in a different theme maybe, or what you're thinking?
Yeah, I want to see some 2025 I guess Six Nations fire, Fred. I want to see the best series for the Six Nations in 2026 February that we've ever seen.
I think...
or even just as a creative, by the way. It doesn't have to be in your job. It can also just be as a creative if there's anything you want to try as well.
Yeah, I think I used to reach out to people a lot, and I probably don't really do that as much as I should do now. And I think just because of how intense like camp life is, you maybe like once you then come back to reality almost, like maybe being creative or pushing yourself to find new opportunities is maybe just put on the back burner. So yeah, I would like to do more of that. But then from like an England perspective, I guess we kind of changed the style of how the episodes are shot at the start of the year. So maybe not so much in terms of how it's shot, but it's probably just continuing to build relationships with players. Like, I can't really emphasize how important that is. just like having conversations with players in downtime, whether that's at a meal or out and about, and just chatting to people. I feel like, as I think you've mentioned on the pod before, that a lot of creatives are quite introverted, and I'm probably fall into that bracket sometimes as well, especially with like people that are like well known. I'm in a kind of a fortunate position that a lot of the players are a similar age to me, so it is kind of like just talking to people that are your friends, even though I don't know if you could put them in that bracket because they're not really like that. But yeah, I think just building good relationships with people, and that goes for like staff as well. You get more out of people when they know who you are, rather than just asking a question as a guy behind a camera, rather than Fred. And I know that he lives in London and has a girlfriend, and like know more about the person than just, oh, that's the media guy type thing, which I think maybe some people can fall into the trap of they are just another member of staff.
That's a good point. Yeah, because also people might just. So have you seen? There is a few YouTube videos where people do pranks and they switch like a team's camera person out with some randomer to see how long they notice, and they never notice because obviously if you've got the camera in your hand, you can kind of. I think was it I can't remember who it was, but a camera is like the world's best visa. Who was it that said that, Matt, on our pod?
I don't know, mate. But I've heard. I get what you mean. Like it's your pass.
Yeah.
Was it like a passport? It's like a way to get into scenarios and kind of go covert, and you kind
exactly.
of see the guy with the camera.
In, stuff like
you look
that,
at the guy with the camera, but you don't look at his face. You kind of notice the camera, and you.
It's just a lens.
Guy or girl. You notice the person with the camera. And you.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I was going to say that the Sherlock episode turns out that the wedding photographer's the serial killer, but that puts us all in a bad light, so let's not say that.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah. But no, that's...
I feel like I had one more thing to say on that. Yeah, I have seen like people, I think there was like an NRL team or something there. I think the media girl went up to like a few of the players and she was like, oh, what's my name? They were like, so that's not, I don't actually think that's a reflection on her. I think that's just like players have focused on one thing, and yeah, that's probably like the last thing that they remember because they probably meet so many people. But I'm in a fortunate position that I am like in the environment with them and can talk to them in times where it's not a media slot or a time where there's always like a connotation that like media is bad or boring. And I think you could probably change the narrative that it's not like that, and it can be quite fun, and it can open opportunities to do cool things, and it should be utilized more. And yeah, the camera can get you places. Even just setting opportunities like for ourselves, like in the summer, we went to the Boca Junior Stadium to do like a content crossover, which you probably maybe wouldn't have done if it was any other line of work. So yeah.
I do have another question. Sorry. This is the last question. Who out of the England team do you have the best relationships with? Like a few of the players, who do you get on with the most?
And who do you hate the most?
No, you can't say that.
No, without sounding cliche, they're all actually brilliant to work with. The Northampton Saints lads I get along with very well. The summer tour was great. Like I built good relationships with like Joe Hayes, Jack Van Portfleet, Freddie Stewart. But like to be honest, they're all like just really nice guys, all very down to earth, like very normal people. They all love rugby. They want to see it do well. It's a sport that's overshadowed by football, cricket to a certain extent, and like lots of other sports. I think it's a sport that is often seen as quite like an upper class sport, but I think there's such a huge opportunity for people from less privileged backgrounds to be involved with, and it has a lot of the aspects of like aggression, talent, I don't know, emotion, like all the good things that sport provides. I think rugby encompasses. So
for sure, I think particularly social skills and developing soft skills, like being around like a team, particularly in rugby. I feel like the camaraderie it's a very tight knit and socially, like, it's a really strong sport. So yeah, I think particularly in that area as well.
Yeah, it's very selfless, and I would say that's probably like a skill set that translates into backroom staff as well. I think people are willing to go the extra mile for like the team as opposed to just doing it for yourself. Like that's what I'd say rugby definitely prides itself on, that it is a team sport. There's not necessarily, obviously there's like very talented individuals, but they all work cohesively to make the team good. And I think that is definitely evident in the staff that work there as well, that it's a lot of very, very talented individuals. And there's a reason that they're working for England Rugby, like the national team. And yeah, it all ties in very nicely and hopefully makes a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. Right, well, let's wrap up the episode there. Thank you so much, Fred, for taking the time to jump on. I know we've been trying to line this up for a while, so it's nice to finally make it happen and pick your brain and just hear your insights. I'm sure that the people listening to this definitely took something away, definitely learned something. I definitely did. So I really, really appreciate it.
We really excuse me, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Really,
oh my
really
god,
appreciate it. Me particularly, you know, I've been pestering you for a while as a mate to kind of come on, so it's nice to, you know, make it happen.
Yeah, and obviously I'm like the secret number one biggest fan that doesn't use social, so you never see. But yeah, man, it's been amazing to have you on, and I'm loving your work, and I can't wait to see what else you put out going forward. And yeah, hopefully 2026 is also going to be a crazy year as well. So
yeah, because
thanks,
excited.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna win.
Yeah, and we'll have to get you back on in the future.
Yeah, I'll put in a good word from Matt Pearson.
Yeah.
Can I just add maybe 2 more points?
Yeah, of course.
You can maybe slot them in at a different point. Is it worth mentioning like people that I really like the work of?
Yeah, so I wasn't going to ask that because you kind of mentioned a few directors and photographers that you liked, and so I thought you'd already answered that.
Yeah, there's just one that I've really, really liked the work of recently, which is Flo Panay, I think is how you say her name. Her work is brilliant. It is really good. I think what we were talking about, like varying different shots and just her use of movement, like how she color grades things, is a really good example of what I personally think is a really good photographer, especially a sports photographer, if that's something that you're interested in. So check out Flo's work. I should maybe also shout out Owen, who I work with. I work with him very closely. We're like very, very good friends, and he does all the short form social media that you see. So anything shot on an iPhone is going to be done by him, but there is a huge importance on that aspect. I think it's like almost like a completely different world. Like, yes, you're both shooting video, but it's for 2 different kind of audiences. Like short form content we all consume, maybe not Cameron because he's not on socials, but maybe he's on the YouTube shorts, who knows.
Definitely.
But they're not as good as Instagram.
They're not. But yeah, he does a fantastic job, has built up the chef's profile, and is probably just a good example of how quickly you can grow in a niche, and what people are interested in. People are interested in like the most random stuff, like how many eggs England players eat in a campaign. Like, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but that's like our best performing video ever, and it's got like millions and millions of views. So yeah, that's very cool. And from like just going back to going up and talking to people that you're nervous to do so with, he's really good at that. So who's the guy that was in? He's kind of got Will. The guy Will Poulter was at the training ground when we were training in Girona. He was coming out to watch an Arsenal game, and we were like, "Oh, it'd be really cool to like get him down to watch training and stuff." And Owen was like, "All right, I'll go and ask him." And he just like literally just got up and went and talked to him. I was like, "That is mental." Like no second guessing, and it is like just as easy as that. And random like bits of inspiration for me, I think Steve-O said when he used to do those like mad stunts, he would just say 3, 2, 1, and after 1 he has to do it. Like that's his like little motto, and I've sort of carried it through, even though I do get a bit nervous sometimes to go and chat to people. But like Alan Wynne-Jones, if you're a rugby fan, I videoed the Barbarians game like a few years ago, and my mum's Welsh, and it was just really cool. And I thought, I'm gonna have to go and say hello to him and get a picture with him. And I was just like, all right, 3, 2, 1. And then you go up and talk to him like, all right, well, I'm here now. And you just start chatting. And then it's actually fine because they're all just like normal people. So yeah, just take that as like a reminder that they're just as scared as you are.
Yeah.
Probably not, but.
Nice. No, it's great. It's a nice way to wrap it up. And there's some good takeaways there for sure. Lovely stuff. Well,
yeah, if I keep talking, I'll keep the episode going. So I'm just gonna.
yeah. This is our longest episode we've ever recorded. So we'll wrap it up there.
Is it?
But,
okay. Well, I mean, we started recording before we started speaking, didn't we? So maybe there's a few bits
That's
you
a
could
fair
take
point,
off.
yeah.
No. It's good. It's a good conversational piece. So, yeah, guys, thank you for listening. We appreciate the support. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Spotify channel. Leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. Tell your mates about it. Subscribe to the newsletter. Link in our bio. We release 3 things that we love at the moment, a creative of the week, and we let you know about the latest episode that drops. So make sure you subscribe to that, and we'll see you in the next episode. Much love.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.